I'm going to go over all the current year albums, mixtapes and EPs I listened to in March, share my thoughts and opinions, and at the end of each one, give my favourite and least favourite tracks along with an overall rating out of 10. These are the timestamps for the albums, these are the timestamps for the EPs. Bruno Mars, The Romantic. My full-length review of this album is, if I remember correctly, the most hated video on my channel thus far. In the review, I stated that the album was an incredibly unadventurous exploration of pop soul and Latin soul music, and I still strongly stand by that statement, even more than I did the day I reviewed it. Bruno has been on this run of bringing back that old school soul sound in recent releases, and it went over very well on the Silk Sonic album, but on The Romantic he just doesn't deliver that same magic or bring fresh and exciting ideas to the table. My initial favourite song on the album, I Just Might, I don't even find decent anymore. It sounds like H&M music. It's grown off me heavily. Listen, if you want to hear my full thoughts, just go check out my video. In retrospect, I think I should have gone even harder on the album because it's just not good at all. Bruno Pernanadas, Unlikely Maybe. I stumbled across this album on Rate Your Music and decided to give it a listen. This is my first introduction to Bruno's music, who I believe is a pop and jazz musician from Portugal. Unlikely Maybe is his latest album and consists of 9 lush melodic tracks. Throughout these 9 songs, the album explores wonderful blends of neo-psychedelia, jazz fusion, progressive pop, and even a touch of indie-tronica. It's versatile enough that pinning it down to a single genre is difficult. For example, the second track begins as a jazz fusion cut, but suddenly transitions into a rap verse with live jazz instrumentation behind it. The opening of the album is a lovely neo-psychedelic experience, starting with what I believe are either vocal harmonies or synthesizers. They sound Halloweenish yet joyful at the same time, but when the vocals start, I immediately feel at ease. For some reason, his soft voice reminds me of Masayoshi Takanaka. There's a similar charming quality that evokes the same feeling as Takanaka's voice. There are also subtle tropical vibes throughout the album. The track overall makes me feel like I'm walking in heavy rain, but with a smile on my face. There are a few duds, but very few. The instrumental in Campus Fire doesn't really go anywhere over its 5-minute runtime, and I also find some moments on that song vocally underwhelming. As a whole though, this was an excellent introduction to Bruno Pernanadas' music for me, leaving me excited to hear his other work. BTS Arirang. I put out a full-length negative review of this album already, but it's been over a week since it came out, and yeah, I still think it's a trash album honestly, and it's not like I've never been a fan of BTS's music before, because I remember enjoying that J-Hope EP where he went into more of a hip-hop direction, which even featured English lyrics that were tolerable. But as for Arirang, even the English lyrics are incredibly lazy, repetitive, and just senseless slop. On top of that, the vocal performances that the members bring are some of the worst they've ever done. This is such a disappointing release. For Fcukers O, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce the album title, but anyway, this album slaps so hard. It is full of UK garage and house bops, with vocal melodies that immediately get stuck in my head after only a few listens alone. Shannon, the vocalist of the group, uses her voice amazingly on this album in a way that complements the house instrumentals wonderfully, adding to whatever vibe the production tries to bring. She will sometimes sing in a more deadpan, monotone, borderline sassy style, like on I Like It Like That and If You Wanna Party, Come Over to My House, which both contain some of the most infectious earworms on the album, but where her voice stands out the most for me is when she sings in a more whispery, airy, delicate fashion. It's somewhat relaxing and reminds me of Pink Pantheress's 2021 music, like in the song Lonely. It's an underrated album that I hope gathers more love and attention as the year draws on. It's a short listen to with 11 songs, all tracks span from 2 to 3 minutes. Give it a listen. Femtanyl, Man Bites Dog. Digital hardcore duo Femtanyl has just put out their debut album around Valentine's Day. For those hip-hop fans out there, you may have heard Femtanyl from the contributions that they've made on Danny Brown's Starburst album, and if you remember that Femtanyl track from that album, I Love My Life, that was probably the craziest and most completely unhinged moments on the entirety of Starburst, and that unhinged, incredibly noisy contribution that they brought to that Danny Brown song carries over onto this album, Man Bites Dog, for pretty much the entire duration. It's noisy, it's punchy, it's absolutely wild, yet within its noise, the melodies that come through, whether it's through the bassy, distorted synth lines or the vocals, are pretty great. The vocal melodies that are brought to Video Nasty are such an era. Man Bites Dog overall is admittedly one-dimensional, but I still believe they've done well for a debut, as it is a wildly fun listen, and just like the album cover, super electrifying and full of energy. GENA, the pleasure is yours. This will go down as one of the best neo-soul albums of the year. It's a smooth, sensual, and at times atmospheric and psychedelic almost blends of alternative R&B, psychedelic soul, and as I've already mentioned, neo-soul. Many of the tracks here are short, but they get their points and ideas across effectively in their brief runtimes, to the point where they feel even longer than they actually are in a good way. The instrumentals throughout are lovely too. The track How We Flow has this amazing old school Jay Dilla vibe. The album overall lives up to its title very well. It really is a pleasurable and also alluring R&B experience. The Mountain Gorillaz. Okay, I did listen to this at the end of February, but I thought it would be better to share my thoughts a month after the release rather than right after it came out. I've already put out a full-length review of this album, so you can check it out if you haven't already. Now that it's been a month since its release, I still believe all the positive things I said about the album still apply. I'd say it's just as fantastic an album as the day I reviewed it. The way Gorillaz incorporates Middle Eastern and South Asian influences is incredibly creative and forward-thinking, and it really is their best album since Plastic Beach. Jack Harlow Monica. I'm not saying that this album will be the worst to come out this year. I'm sure there will be a worse album that eventually drops in 2026. However, I don't think there will be another 2026 album that gives me a listening experience as frustrating as the one I had the first time I heard this. There won't be another 2026 album that will piss me off as much as Monica pissed me off. I'll put money on that. I said this in my review and I'll say it again. This album sounds like what I imagine coleslaw tastes like to people who don't like coleslaw. It's such a generic, boring take on neo-soul music. If you have any trouble falling asleep, just turn on this album. James Blake, Trying Times. Yeah, this is one of James Blake's greatest albums. I knew he was cooking up something special when all the teaser tracks leading up to the release of this project were fantastic. Death of Love has an incredibly pleasurable melody with ghostly production that puts me at ease. My compliments to the song and the way it's actually structured is quite similar to I Had a Dream, She Took My Hand, which takes an even slower approach. The song is built around icy synths, but when the piano parts comes in, replicating the vocal melody, it makes me feel like I'm floating in space. It also feels like I'm literally in a dream, holding hands with my lover. As you go deeper into the album, the more beautiful it gets. The way the track Didn't Come to Argue transitions into its second part, bringing together soaring strings, incredibly angelic singing, and ethereal keys, creates a passage so heavenly that I wish it were longer. There are a few underwhelming moments. Obsession feels more like a brief motif that doesn't add much to the listening experience. The lyrics are too vague and repetitive, and the simple piano keys lack character. But wow, I'm very impressed with this album overall. This will definitely go down as one of the best electronic, R&B, art pop, whatever you want to categorize it as, albums of the year. Kanye West Bully. Pretty much everything I wanted to say about this album I covered in my original review, so go check it out if you want the full take. But to sum up some parts of that review in one sentence, Bully is an album that prioritizes building up Ye's reputation over making good music, leaving the record feeling soulless and lacking identity despite being better than anything he has released since Donda. Kim Gordon Play Me. Rockstar legend Kim Gordon of Sonic Youth fame is on her second hip-hop album in her solo career, with the first hip-hop album being The Collective. The Collective was enjoyably experimental and captivating, and I don't think Play Me lives up to the excellence of that album, honestly. I already put out a positive review of Play Me and I still enjoyed the album, but it has grown on me less over time. I do wish the tracks felt more progressive. The brief runtimes of the songs are a detriment to them. It's also partially why tracks like Play Me has lost their flavor over time, like chewing gum. Nothing's About to Happen to Me, Mitski. It's a pretty good album and my opinion hasn't really changed since my review. I do find it disappointing in comparison to her previous album, but there are some beautiful songs here, and the lyrical themes revolving around cats throughout the record are lovely as well. And Undying Love for a Burning World, Neurosis. Neurosis, the literal pioneers of the atmospheric sludge metal genre, has just come out with a comeback album a decade after their previous one. During this hiatus, Scott Kelly has deservingly been kicked out of the band due to him abusing his wife and children, and the person who would replace Scott for this new album is none other than Aaron Turner of ISIS fame, who is of course another incredibly important band within sludge. Aaron Turner being the new vocalist for the band is a thought that sounds so exciting that to believe that the music itself would actually live up to the very high expectations raised from this would feel unrealistic. However, Neurosis really nailed the target on this one. Much of the songs here are thoroughly detailed and go through all sorts of captivating progressions. The album is monstrous and loud when it needs to be, but slow and soothing when it needs to be as well, as a way to sort of cool down from the louder moments that came before, like the middle section in First Red Rays that is very angelic, especially when compared to the killer riffs and harsh vocals that came before it. And speaking of killer riffs, there is a solid amount of excellent riffs across the entire album. The one on Mirror Deep is one that I especially love. It's a great first proper song on the album, but I'd say the album has an even more epic and mind-blowing finish with Last Light. I do admit there were some moments that did bore me. I mean, the runtimes on these tracks are pretty long, but still, this is the comeback album that everyone wanted from them. The Scratch, Purr Like a Dog. Irish band The Scratch has just come out with their album Purr Like a Dog, my first introduction to the band. The reason I decided to give the album a listen is because pretty much all the singles leading up to it were fire. It was just one hooky metal banger after another, but as someone who hasn't heard their other stuff, I was a bit surprised when I found out they are also capable of creating some folk tunes, which I believe were more of a focus on their past records. Like right after we're hit with Glad Rags, another hooky metal banger where the lead singer sounds like James Hetfield, there's a sudden switch in vocal style when the following track, Cracks, comes on. It's a folk ballad with a gentler yet still manly aged singing voice. The melody is so hypnotic that I just get lost in it. The band is as skilled at delivering their alt metal bangers as they are with the gentler folk numbers, but then their vigorous side returns when the unnerving bassline appears towards the end of the song, growing heavier and progressing the track from a folk ballad to an energized rock anthem, culminating in a wrathful payoff that's well worth the wait. Spacer attempts this same blend of metal intensity and folk softness, but comes off as directionless. The main guitar line that drives the song throughout evokes something you might hear from a slowcore bands like Red House Painters. There's even one point in the song where these Pink Floyd flavored guitars come in too, but I just don't think the singer's voice complements the stripped back guitar all that well. Then I Hope All Is Forgiven branches out of metal more extensively than I would like, as the instrumentation builds up into an atmospheric post-rock sound towards the end, but it lacks the beauty that makes that genre so appealing in the first place. It has the average length of a lot of the other songs, yet it feels like an interlude due to how much of a nothing burger it is. But overall, Purr Like a Dog is a really solid alternative metal album that showcases a deep appreciation for both catchiness and versatility. The Scythe, strictly for the Scythe. The Scythe is the group formed by Denzel Curry. I won't list every single member as I've already done that in my full-length review. I've seen this album receive a lot of mixed reviews, and now now, about a month after I made my review, my opinion remains the same. I still think it's a pretty fantastic project with more hits than misses. I had a lot of fun listening to it at the listening party before the album's release, and I still enjoy how it sounds when I listen on my own. It's underrated, and I genuinely believe it deserves more hype than it gets. If I were to rank this album within Denzel's discography, I would say it's on par with Unlocked. The chorus on Lit Effect slaps, Hoopty is a super fun party anthem, and Phony and the Scythe are 3-6 Mafia style posse cuts that have endless replay value. There are just too many bangers here. Slayr Half-Blood Bloodluxe. This is the deluxe version of Slayr's Half-Blood album from last year, and I think the additional tracks are even better than the original material on the original album. Wipe Your Nose has an insane distorted beat that takes me back to 2017, when instrumentals with tons of distortion were dominating the SoundCloud rap scene, except in this case it's even more colourful and somewhat blissful too. If there's one thing about Slayr that sets him apart from his contemporaries, it's that the guy has such a massive appreciation for a good melody. Whether you're talking about Love Blur, Demigod or Brain Fog, this album is full of some of the catchiest tunes to have ever come out of the rage scene. Not only are they catchy though, they're also blissful and unironically quite beautiful for a rage song, like the already mentioned Brain Fog for example. I don't know if it's Slayr's voice or the melody itself, but the chorus sounds so strangely delightful, and this delightful, bittersweet and low-key enchanting nature of this opening track is also present in many of the songs on this project. 24/7 may give off this vibe the most out of all the tracks here, as the romantic lyrics only emphasize it, and even when it comes to the more underwhelming cuts on the record, they still at least have a good melody going for them. It really is just how underdeveloped other aspects are that brings those songs down. I love this album overall. It contains some of the most feel-good and addictive melodies that I've heard from any Rage album this year so far. The production is so colourful and bright, just like the album cover, but not in a way that's super messy or hard to make sense of. There are even moments where other genres influence the instrumentals too, like I hear a bit of rock elements in Flash Out Freestyle. Yeah, this is one of the best albums I've heard all year. RAYE, this music may contain hope. There are a few good moments on this album, but there are way more cheesy and ridiculously over the top ones. This album makes it difficult to take seriously at times, and it feels like I'm watching a GCSE drama play rather than listening to an actual album at points. I've already done a review of this, so I'm gonna leave it here. Robyn's Existential. Robyn, the amazing and influential pop icon, has just come out with her latest record, Existential, and I really like it. There are a lot of synth pop bops on this thing, but sonically they're bouncy, upbeat, and ridiculously catchy rather than sensual, despite the lyrics leaning into more of a romantic or sexual territory. I'd say the title track is the most standout song, as it is way more out there than the other tracks lyrically and sonically, with its abundance of attitude, sassiness, confidence, and sexual explicitness. Robyn also sings in a way that gives off massive PC music vibes, something she has of course long had a significant influence on. She even drops lyrics about hentai. What other 46-year-old pop star is doing that nowadays? The song is also a nice switch up in mood and energy from the other tracks, as the album did honestly feel a bit one-dimensional up until that point. I'd say that the title track is my favorite song on here, whereas Light Up is my least favorite, as I feel it's the most flavorless and basic track on the album. It certainly sounds pretty simple when you consider how quirky and fun the title track that came before is. I don't really have much else to say beyond that. The singles are great, most of the deep cuts are great. I guess you could say 8 years is a bit too long of a wait, but hey, this record still shows that she's capable of creating amazing pop songs, and I'm fine with that. Underscores you. Yeah, not only do I think this is her best album, but I also believe it will go down as one of the best pop albums of the year. I cannot stop playing Love Field and Innuendo. These tracks have grown on me even more since my review. Various artists helped too. This is a various artists compilation album put together by the charity War Child Records. The profits from this compilation go towards the charity's goal of helping children affected by war. It's an amazing listening experience featuring a variety of fantastic songs that range from tear-jerkingly beautiful like the Big Thief track to upbeat and catchy like Let's Do It Again by Last Dinner Party. party. I highly recommend giving this record a listen. Not only does it go towards a good cause, but the music here is some of the best you'll hear all year. I wasn't joking in my full-length review when I said this compilation includes what's possibly the best song Black Country New Road has made since Isaac Woods left the band. Also, Beth Gibbons from Portishead fame does a cover of the Velvet Underground Sunday Morning on here. What more could you ask for? Yeat ADL. When I put out my full-length review of this album, I thought it was trash, but I noted there were still some highlights. Now, some time later, I can't recall a single moment where I've gone back to any of those highlights. ADL is such a disappointment. It's trash, it's boring, and its ideas are poorly executed. Yeat tries to be Kanye so badly. Now time for the EPs. Big Mama by Flying Lotus. Groundbreaking producer Flying Lotus has just released this EP. A pretty fun exploration of IDM and glitch hop that draws on the vibes of video game soundtracks. Horse music sounds like something that would play during a boss battle in a Nintendo game. There's moments in Pink Dream that sound so Super Mario coded too. Flying Lotus does a solid job of curating these sounds and vibes. It's a nice listen overall with some good highlights, but I came away from this EP without many moments that truly stuck in my head. I just wish it had more punch. Please like and subscribe.